and just, but the energy was there, and there was something about this family. So she's like, okay, interesting. She goes, oh, do you want the name of the hotel so you could look it up? I said, okay, sure. Why don't you let me know? So she gives me the name of the hotel. You know, a couple days later, I get around to looking at it, and then I read the story, and I'm like, oh wow, it's a particular suite in this hotel that something happened, and the family members, it's like there's some kind of family curse, if you want to call it, that has influence over what's been going on, that some people, I think, I'm trying to recall the story, it's been a while since I read it, that they kind of just, it's not that they go mad, but they're like influenced or something, so there is a family that is affecting it, and then they say, oh, well, you can't get into that suite unless it's fully booked and there's no other rooms, or you upgrade. Funny about upgrade. So I text her, I'm like, hey, while you're there, you can upgrade to the ghost suite. And she goes, and that's why I love you.
but it's that
but I tuned in, and it was, and I'm like, yay, I got a confirmation. So it was.
It's taken.
But it's a different. It felt like a different story than what was written, but it was still the same story.
Right. It's the way you interpret it, but it's putting on that cap, like I'd call it, is, you know, put the hat on so you can connect it to the source that is of a higher frequency. Now, what's funny is when you educate yourself, and I'm not saying people are not educated yet. There's no good light language. There's no English for this light language I'm trying to say. Is that? But it simply is. Each of us are meant to be a kaleidoscope of color that is meant to show a lens of a reality, and it is meant to be that. So no, we're not supposed to be like the other person. We can respect and say, oh my gosh, that is another perspective. The education one goes forward, and I'm not talking about school. I'm talking about all the stuff that you need to do so you can compare to grow. And when you take that shift, I started off listening and understanding all kinds of goobers. I got 2 or 3 pages of just names of goobers alone. I just call them goobers. It's just easier that way instead of just name calling them, but they do have different frequencies.
Well, it's like in Ghostbusters when the ectoplasmic snot that they get. That's a goober.
That's a goober. Oh, boy. That's funny. But, so I've learned how to know when they're present, and then know how to heal it without going into fear. So the ego, which I call the human mindset, literally does not have to over-identify, get lost. Like I said, when I was sitting there with my friend, and her shot of fear went right through me, and I'm like, Holy Mother of God, and I was petrified. I wanted to jump out of my skin, and then until I realized it's not me, I unplugged from it. I had, you know, that you can pick up on all these frequencies. And everything just shifted real quick. Everything just shifted real quick. Alright, so yes, do they exist? Yes and no. The more light and more knowledge, more experiences that I have traveled through changes the knowing, upgrades me. It doesn't say I'm better than anybody, it just means that my path is that I am upgrading from what I used to know to what I know now. I always know there's more to know. So I keep upgrading. So I'm around people that says, oh, you know, you shouldn't believe in angels. It's like, well, have you had experience with an angel? Now they'll say, yeah, they had experience with a negative angel. Okay, well, I've had experience with positive angels. Our two experiences don't cancel each other out. They both exist. It's just that this is how we're choosing to interplay with the reality. What do you got to say that you want to say?
Well, something told me to look at the time and then look at the number.
Good.
So, and this is when this person heals.
The redhead?
Yeah. It says...
I feel like I'm insulting this person. You redhead. No, this redhead angel. Yes, Miss Purple Woman. You can see the video. She's got some red.
I've got some red hair.
Yeah. Oh, I wish we could look up what red hair means. There's got to be a represents like that.
temper?
No, not necessarily.
I tell people I finally got a hair color that matches my personality.
But redheads are supposed to be are independent, and they have that necessity of the root chakra pretty much, you know, stable. Go.
Because you're listening to and following your divine guidance, your career and finances are on track. Keep up the good work.
Oh, there's your answer. That's all I've been asking.
And I paid attention.
Yes, and that's why I said, hey, I can feel the energy shift. So your money issues are no big deal. Eventually you'll be,
You look back
growing.
at this and laugh.
yeah. Okay, now I'm going to switch. We're going to talk about truth, which is something we were talking about earlier. Okay? Now here's the energy of the planet that's happening. We see patterns. We don't know it, but how we know it through it is we complain. Oh, that happened to me again! Did you see that? That happened again! I always get red lights. This always happens to me. Okay? Now, that is one way of knowing. But let's find out a little deeper. When you take the truth, my husband sent me this cartoon by...
It's For Better or For Worse. I think her name is Lynn. Oh, I can't remember her last name.
Speak up. Okay.
Yeah,
So For Better or Worse.
For Worse cartoons. They're pretty interesting, starting on
So
Sunday.
this story was about...
About a family, basically.
The husband did what?
The husband thought he was joking with his wife, but he was really hurting her.
Yeah, so he would tease
Teasing
her.
her.
And the main scoop was about how she was always talking about going to the farm, and so I tried all these new things out. Wow, that's a lot of hard work. And then he says...
You finally worked for a time, or something like that.
For a change.
For a change. Basically,
Instead of
she's a
being lazy.
housewife, so he thinks she doesn't work, she only works at home.
And we were talking about
And
joking.
you can almost see her fuming.
Right. And he says, well, lighten up, it's a joke. Now, here's an interesting
Oh.
fact. Boys like to pick on girls, and girls like to pick on boys when they're little. Hit each other. Because you don't know how else to react. You know,
To get your attention.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Now, what people say, well, I have my truth. I have to say it. Well, if you are having your truth, it should be your authentic truth about you, your beliefs, and how you feel.
But your truth shouldn't be used to hurt somebody else.
Right. Now, if I were to look at this truth, and my truth about my husband, now this isn't really the old days, and this is not true at all, but I have to come up with an example. Here you are, you're going to work every day.
Yes.
I would stay home and take care of the kids. Okay? And I wanted him to come home and help me out with the kids, so as soon as he got home, I waited a few minutes, talked to him for a minute, and then I'd say, oh, here, take, and then you're busy cooking and doing other things, so you want to do a handoff. There's an extra hand there to help. So, my truth is that he doesn't like to help. That's not true. He likes to help. He's just working so hard that he would just need a break when he came home. In the story of the cartoon, the guy's truth is that he calls him as he sees him, I think is what he said, is that he saw her through his only way of looking at it is that he doesn't see what she does all day long. You had this issue with your husband. We'll go into that in a minute. So he doesn't know what she does all day long, except for what he has imagined and wrote down in his definition in his mind, this is what she does.
She sits and watches the soaps.
It's like the memes we see on Facebook.
Oh yeah, this is the society's definition of, I don't know, a scientist. This is my friends. This is what my family thinks.
This is what I think.
This is what I think, and then
This is
there's
what
something.
really happened.
This is what really. Yeah, there was another.
Yeah,
another one.
There's like 6 little categories.
Yeah, but this is what I really do.
And it is, so where's the truth? The truth lies in the beholder. Then my husband says, well, we got to heal right and wrong. He goes, well, there's nothing wrong with right and wrong. I says, yes, there is. I says, there is no right and wrong. There is just a belief in how you define that moment. There is a healthy way or an unhealthy way. And he had to notice that I said, if you walk into the room, let's say we went over and visited Jen, okay? We're not going to rifle through her stuff because we want to respect her space.
Right.
Oh, good Lord. But she may have rules. Take your shoes off at the door. When you go to the bathroom, make sure you put a fresh towel up. I mean, who knows what people say, but it's their truth. You may look and say, that is stupid. The truth is this woman's stupid because you do not like her things. And I said, okay, but when you're in her house, you need to do the right thing, and that's follow what she says. Okay? Or you can respect the fact that this is the way she functions, and we want to be with her, so we're willing to do these things. There's a big difference between right and wrong. Okay?
So you were saying something about
your husband, what your husband thought, what your ex-husband thought about you.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of what I do is on the computer, and a lot of it is about thinking, imagining, creating,
A lot of brain work.
a lot of brain work of developing what a spiritual program looks like, what my sermon looks like, what the church bulletin is going to look like, Sunday school and everything. That's all about thinking and creating and research and whatever else. And so then at a certain point, I would realize, oh, well, okay, now his routine was to come home and then we would eat dinner and then do whatever and then he would go play on the computer. So I had to be done on my computer by a certain time, and then he would say, so what'd you do? And so it was interesting. He said, so what'd you do today? But there was because, and I must have healed something because it doesn't sound like it's the same tone, but because I was tonal and hear things that aren't really being said, when he'd say, oh, so what'd you do today? It was like, you better prove to me that you did something.
Right.
And so, but then I'd be cooking and doing all that kind of stuff, and then I would tell him what I did. Oh, well, you should really try what I do. That's actual work.
And he was just like, you do nothing, I do. He
Exactly.
wants that, and that really got to you. So,
The edge.
again, what is one's truth? It all depends on the view. When I'm listening to Sapien and you hear some of the topics they're going to talk about, you can't help but to go into judgment because it's old training, it's old modeling, it's old. Let's follow the box. Let's go into that space and let's follow the leader. And breaking away and finding the voice and the courage is very important. When you take your voice and the courage to stand up and be different, I was so afraid to come out of my spiritual closet because it's a different voice. But then I would have gay friends and I'm thinking, geez, I would like just 1 ounce of courage they have because they are telling everybody, this is who I am. Get over it. Okay? I couldn't even say, oh, I'm a spiritual person. Get over it. Because I kept having these old programs that hadn't been upgraded yet, and so I would have people that come from the church and other that, and telling me how wrong I was, and their truth is the only truth, and God's truth is the only truth, and we have a Bible to back it up, and we're going to smack you over the head with it. And some of the things that are in the Bible, they're against gay. Jesus is against gay people. That's not even frickin' in the Bible.
Right, Jesus didn't even say anything about homosexuality.
And
what's interesting is that there's some funny things going around.
They do in the name of Jesus.
With Dr. Laura talked about, oh, they need to be persecuted because this, that, and the other thing, and then these people answer, well, we're not supposed to wear polyester, which is a mixed fabric, or eat shellfish, and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I learned an easy way to determine about the laws in Leviticus. This is a very easy road test. Are you a 1st century Palestinian male?
The answer would be no.
Correct. The laws don't apply to you.
Interesting. Yeah, because if you look at who wrote the laws for who.
Exactly. And it's about staying pure, and because it was about, because a lot of it was about the health law code to really stay within the community.
Mm-hmm. But it's those rules. It's those individual rules for people. Like Octarine says, well, I have house rules I put on my front doors because she doesn't like people who text while they're visiting because it bugs her. And that is understanding that there's another story behind it, but respecting her.
When you're there to visit, you're there to
visit
pay
her,
attention
and that's what her biggest thing is. So now, she shouldn't have done that. I hope you don't take offense, because Spirit is not going, let's see why it bugs her.
I know, I read that and I'm like, oh.
Because what does it do to her concentration? Makes it muddled.
Just don't text her the answer.
Just don't text her the answer in front of her.
Wait till she has company.
Yeah. So what happens is
that's part of my teasing past.
What's happening is the direction of the energy switches, and she is fully aware of it. That reminds me of how when you have a loved one and the person dies, stop that, she's directing her energy at me.